Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Interesting. I just, I'm watching an economy that just seems to be going nuts. What I had predicted in my book, The Crash of 2016, was that we are at the end of an 80-year cycle that we go through over and over and over again. I lay out, the cycles. Roughly, I mean, it's been a little, frankly, I think that we were at the end of the 80-year cycle around 2000 to 2008. And that was the crash, right? And that we're still in that crash, basically. But 80 years ago, more or less now, was the Great Depression of World War II. 80 years before that was the Great Depression of 1857, followed by the Civil War. 80 years before that was the Great Crash of 1770, followed by the Tax Act, the Tea Act, the Stamp Act, and the American Revolution in 1776. And so, Strauss and Howe in their book The Fourth Turning, they take these 80-year cycles, all the way back to the 1400s. And so, number one, I was like, we're at the tail end of one of those cycles. Things are changing. Number two, we've had a 7-year bull market. Bull markets typically don't last more than 6 or 7 years, although they don't necessarily flip into depression. But thanks to Gramm-Leach-Bliley and the Commodity Futures Modernization Act, we no longer have separation between investment banking and Main Street banking. We just learned a couple of weeks ago that the banks won't pass. If there's another major economic crisis, the banks are going to have to be bailed out again. And they're failing on the wonders of Dodd-Frank. Dodd-Frank is no panacea. I mean, it did a nice job creating the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, but and there's some good provisions in there. But what we really need is Glass-Steagall, or the modern day version of it. We need to separate the dangerous form of banking, the gambling banking, the Merrill Lynch, or classically Merrill Lynch, Goldman Sachs, stock market banking, from checkbook banking, checkbook, mortgage, savings account banking. And they used to be by law. They used to be two separate industries. Now they're all one, and this all happened around 2000. As a result of ending Glass-Steagall in either 99 or 2000 with Gramm-Leach-Bliley. So, I'm looking at this going, okay, and this was like, 2.5 years ago that I started writing this book, maybe even a little longer, because it was published last year. And it takes about a year after you write it until it's published. And so maybe it's been 3.5 years since I started writing it. And what I was looking at was, A, these cycles, but B, the fundamentals, the way the economy is put together. We've had, 30 years of Republican rule now, much like in 1929, we'd had a decade of Republican rule, and they did the same thing. They just did it a lot faster. Harding came in 1920 and dropped the top tax rate from 91% down to 25%, and, set off this, the roaring 20s. And, which, of course, was a stock market bubble, which led to the great crash of 1929, which led to just unmitigated misery, unbelievable misery for 3 years until the election of 1932. And I think, frankly, if the Bush crash, instead of happening 6 months or, 9 months before the election, if it had happened 2 years before the election, if the crash of 2008 had happened in 2006, then George W. Bush would be viewed as Herbert Hoover. The Republican Party would be toast. They would not be controlling the House or Senate right now. And Barack Obama and the Democrats would have gotten a hell of a lot done and changed this country in some really consequential ways. But it didn't. And so people didn't really realize how bad things were. Well, they're still that bad, in my opinion. And so, the negative interest rate thing and the 5,000-year history of economies, I mean, all the way back to ancient Sumeria, we've never seen negative interest rates. Never happened before. It's turning, conventional macroeconomic theory on its head. And so, it's a good time to be very, very careful. But it's also an interesting time politically, because in my book I suggested that, what Bush was trying to do in 2008 was he was trying to keep the crash from happening until after the election. He knew it was going to happen. Any idiot could look at it and see the housing market was falling apart. There was $800 trillion worth of derivatives out there. There was all this stuff going on that was, unsustainable. Which, by the way, we're back there now. And so Bush was trying to hold it off until November so that the Republicans wouldn't get blamed for it, so that, John McCain could win the election in 2008. And instead, he couldn't do it. So now the question is, can the Obama administration and Janet Yellen running the Fed, and frankly, I think she's doing a better job of running the Fed than previous, can they hold it off until after November so that President Obama doesn't get blamed for this? Or since the Republicans control the House and Senate, are they going to get blamed for it, if it crashes before or after? Although they're very good at manipulating the media and public opinion, and the media certainly has not been calling them out on the horrible stuff they've been doing. So where's the economy going? How's that going to affect the election? And if Trump is elected, does he become Herbert Hoover? I think so.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program.
To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here. And please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.